express my appreciation to the selection committee for choosing me for this very prestigious award. This is very nice. Also, appreciate you inviting my wife, Carolyn, who came today because, for those of you that know Carolyn, you know I married up. One of the things about my wife, Carolyn, is she's a person with a lot of questions. So I could foresee a scenario where, you know, she didn't come today, and I got home from SMU this evening, and we sat down, and Carolyn said, well, Jeff, what happened at SMU today? And I said, well, my dean resigned, and I got an award. And she was saying, well, what kind of award, and what did you do to deserve it? And I'd say, well, I'm not quite sure. I appreciate these very interesting remarks by Dick Helgeson. As Dick said, we go back a long way. When I first came to SMU about 39 years ago, still wet behind the ears, not knowing exactly what I needed to do to be successful, talked to Narayan Bhatt, my department chair, and he said, well, you need to publish, you know, and then you need to publish some more, and then you need to keep publishing. So on day one, when I got here, I started working on these manuscripts, you know, these publication manuscripts, and luckily, early in my career, I met this graduate student who was working full-time at Texas Instruments. And he was working on a PhD in our program, and we got together and we started working on research projects together. And I discovered that this graduate student was a superb computer programmer. We were writing in Fortran back in those days and using punch cards. I also discovered that he was a great mathematician. He could prove theorems with the best of them. And not only those two skills, he could also write up these technical reports, and if I happened to write the first draft, he could turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. Well, as Dick's already mentioned, he was this graduate student, so he was my first PhD student. So by the time I went up for tenure, and this happens in your 6th year, my resume looked pretty good because Dick and I had been working hard for about 5 years, you know. And we also had a grant from the Air Force at the time, so if you're in engineering, it's good to have a grant. And so when I went up for tenure, things looked pretty good. So during my 6th year, my tenure year, I told Dick, I think we ought to write a book. There's really no advanced book in this area, and I'll write the draft, and you do your magic, and we'll have a book. So by the end of my 6th year, they gave me tenure, or I wouldn't be here today. And I had this manuscript, and it was published by John Wiley pretty soon after my 6th year. And of course, we didn't make any money out of it. You know, you can't make any money out of an advanced book. However, about a year after it was published, there was a civilian at a Navy lab in San Diego. And he called me up and he said, hey Jeff, I see you've got this book in this area. And there's this program also in the book. Dick wrote this great program and we put it as an appendix in the book. We have some problems in this area. Would you be willing to help us? And of course I said, oh, you bet. So I started working with the Navy based on this book. And within a few years, we were funded by the Navy and for our operation. And I can tell you that today, I'm the principal investigator on a Navy grant, and we have been funded continuously for about 25 years. So you never know that something you do early in your career is really going to pay off big time. I think I've been extremely fortunate to be able to spend my entire career at SMU. I've had great students to work with. Many of them are here. Ellen Allen, Dave Allen, Bala Shetty, my grandson, Bruce Patty. He was Dick Helgeson's student, and so he's my grandson, my academic grandson. I've had great colleagues to work with. I've had Dick Barr, I've had Eli Olenek, I've had Dinesh Rajan, and many others at SMU to work with. It's really been a terrific environment. My family has also benefited. Catherine, my daughter, came to SMU, graduated in 4 years. That was good. For those of you that had her in class, thank you for passing her. My son, Charles, came to SMU. We didn't force this on him. It was kind of their idea with, you know, some pushing from mom and dad. And Charles graduated in 4 years. Thank you for passing him. That was a little harder than passing Kathy. And now my son Charles has announced to Carolyn and I that his wife is pregnant with our first grandchild. So what more could a man want, right? Thank you once again for the selection committee for this nice work.